This time on Ask Rad Rat, we're talking about how to fix the Tony Hawk series and a bunch of other questions from you guys. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, the channel where you can learn something new about skateboarding 3 times a week, or maybe 1 or 2 for the next couple months. See my last Ask Rad Rat video for details about that. Just been working like crazy, so I'm just trying my best to keep up at this point. But I got a bunch of questions for you today, and let's get right into them. The first one is from Majestic Uncasual, who says, I'd really love to see where your audience stands on skateboarding on Instagram. Looking at the long term, do you think that Instagram will burn out people's interest in skateboarding? Or at least the industry side of it? Instagram numbs me to the sick skating posting and annoys me with all the Me Too posts. I'm actually losing respect for many that aren't more selective of what they post. It seems like a race from everyone to bury everyone else's posts, and as a consumer, it's like mental chaos. But I have a strict rule of ad blocks and no FM radio, so maybe I'm just bonkers. Well, my first thought is that I don't want to be the old guy who's complaining about new technology. That's been happening for thousands of years. I saw a quote from a guy from like the printing press times, and he was complaining that kids these days aren't going to have good handwriting and they're not going to have, they're always going to have their nose buried in a book and they're not going to be out playing and outside and stuff. And like, you can always complain about the new things and how it's going to ruin everything and how technology is bad. But in general, I think Instagram is a very good thing for skateboarding because it helps us share tricks and ideas about stuff really, really quickly. It helps you see what's actually possible. It helps see the best of skateboarding, regardless of the rank of the person who posted it. You know, if someone posts a really good trick, it's going to get reposted somewhere. You're going to eventually see it, regardless of whether that person's a pro or if they know the right people, they've got the right sponsors, all that kind of stuff. So I do think Instagram is generally a good thing, but that doesn't mean that it's good for you in particular. If you're getting burned out by this stuff, then obviously you should probably limit your exposure. But for me, when I was a kid, and I was first learning how to skate, I could do like kick flips and pop shove-its and 50-50 grinds, like that level. I didn't get a lot of inspiration out of pro skate, professional skate videos and stuff like that. Because seeing someone do a Smith down 16 didn't really relate to me. I couldn't aspire to go do that. That didn't get me psyched to go out and try that because I was so far below that level that it didn't really mean anything to me. It's cool to watch, it just didn't really inspire me. So I used to watch a lot of back then a lot of local kids would make their own skate videos like full length. Everyone in your high school would have their own video part, and there'd be like a skit and there'd be a friend section. Like it was a legit style skate video just made by random people. And so I remember this one in particular. There was this guy who was really good at doing tricks out of 50-50 grinds. So we do like a backside 50-50 on a curb and like 360 flip out or something like that. And stuff that you wouldn't see in a pro video, but it was closer to my level to a degree that I got really inspired by that. So I watch him do a 50-50 360 flip out and I think, well, I can't do that yet, but maybe I can 50-50 shove it out. And then that helped me build and got me more and more inspired to do better. And so for me, if I had Instagram back then and I was seeing all the stuff that's posted now, I don't think it would have meant much to me. So that might be the same thing for you. You might need to limit your Instagram and just try to find channels on YouTube where they're kind of closer to your level that you really enjoy watching. I know that made a big difference for me. I don't know what your skill level is or anything, but seeing the best in the world might be kind of disheartening instead of inspiring. So for me, I have all the skateboard stuff on my Instagram, but only my professional one that I use for the channel. I have a personal one, and it's just my friends. So I can keep up with them, but if I feel like watching some skateboarding, I can go to the other account. So that works for me, might work for you. Hopefully that helps. Next question is from C. Fern, who asks, does height affect skate ability? I would say that it affects your abilities, but not your general skate talent. So you've seen a lot of different people of all different shapes and sizes being able to skate and being good at what they do. There was a guy, it was posted on Instagram, going back to the last one, but it was posted, I think Barracks reposted and stuff. And it was a guy with a crutch, and I think he had one leg, and he did like a tray flip with the crutch, like flicking, and he made it flip. You can see people do that. There are people who don't have legs. There's at least a couple of guys and they'll ride around kind of like they're doing a handstand and like pop up and do grinds and all that kind of stuff. Like there's people of all shapes and sizes who can get good at skateboarding. But if you're taller versus shorter, there are different options as far as what tricks you'll be good at, right? So the taller you are, the higher your center of gravity is, the higher off the ground you could jump. You could probably get into clearing rails, like owling higher, owling up onto tall stuff and doing long grinds. Stuff like that might be more possible for you. If you're shorter, the lower your center of gravity is, the better your balance is in general. So doing more technical stuff could be what you're better at. But there's something for everybody in skateboarding. You can get really technical into grinds and manuals. You can do giant ramps. You could do vert. You could do pools. You could do like racing. Like there's something for everybody, no matter what your shape is. So you can get really good no matter what, but the exact skills you can get might vary a little bit. Okay, next question is from Friends Skates, who says, I just built a mini ramp in my backyard. What basic trick should I learn? Well, I do have a playlist of old trick tips I made for ramps right here. I made that back when I had my own ramp in the backyard. By the way, congratulations on that. That's really awesome. I had one way back in the day, and I had a ton of fun on that thing. And I think the biggest thing you need to learn is how to keep up your speed and how to just go from stall to stall without having to stop too much. That was the biggest problem for me. And I'll talk about some specific tricks in a minute, but for me the hardest thing was I built my ramp with a really wide flat bottom. I thought it would help have more time to set up and that kind of stuff, but it actually made it so that you lost more speed between walls. And I also didn't make it that steep, and I also had to use plywood for, it was outdoor. You can't have like, skate light or anything on it. You had to have plywood, and it would start to kind of get soft and kind of like that as it got wet. And so for me, the toughest thing was to just drop in and get to the other side, pump, get to the other side, pump, get back to the other side over and over, and be able to consistently do a line. And so the biggest thing at first is just learning how to pump, learning how to ride it, learning how to kick, turn, and carve, and that kind of stuff on it. But when you start to get into tricks, which you sent me this at least a month ago, so I'm sure you've got a couple, but you need to learn how to drop in, of course, probably the number one. Rock to fakie, obviously a very good one, and then rock and roll both ways. Backside's the easy way. Front side's good because it starts to get you the feeling of going front side, which, when you're skating street, front side's usually the easy way. On a ramp, front side, the coping's in front of you, but the whole ramp's behind you, so it gets a little bit weird. You feel like you're blind doing it, but front side rock's not that hard, and it starts to give you a little bit of taste of that. You could do a fakie rock, which is basically like a switch rock. You go up fakie, rock, pull it back to normal. Fakie tail stalls are good. Some stuff like that. When you start to get a little bit better, you can do that stuff in lines, and you can start to get a feel for like how to flow tricks together. You can try to do some of those with a slide, or grind. I should have said to do an axle stall too, but like 50-50 grinds are good. When you get a little bit more skill, you can try Smiths and Feebles, stationary at first, but you can build those into grinds as well. So that's some good stuff to do. I would stick with stalls for a good long while because they're a lot easier than trying to learn how to like kickflip to fakie in your ramp or something like that. That's a huge step. That's a lot harder, for me at least. Once you start learning how to pop out of the ramp and land back into it, that's a big deal. And you can get to that point by learning how to pop into stalls. So like a frontside tail stall, you have to actually pop the tail and land on it instead of just like, leaning. So I would work my way up in that kind of way. Start with basic stalls, do some more advanced ones, learn some that you have to pop into, eventually take that into popping and landing back into the ramp, and you should be in good shape. The next question is from Kylie Snipes, who asks, does doing core strengthening and legs and whatnot make enough of a difference in skating to make it worth it? It really depends on what kind of skating you're doing and what kind of training you want to do. If you want to do big gaps and huge drops and absorb impact, then yeah, doing a lot of leg strengthening and doing a ton of squats, probably going to make a huge difference for you. If you're getting into technical stuff, if you're doing like football style training where you like run through tires and you stop on this marker, then that marker, and you're getting used to being able to put your foot in the same spot where you always expect it to perfectly every time, like that kind of stuff is going to help for sure. But it just depends on where your weaknesses are and all that kind of stuff. For me, it made a huge difference. So I had a knee injury for about 5 years. I could skate maybe 5 or 10 minutes at the most. So I was doing the channel at this point. Like I was filming trick tips. I'd go outside for 10 minutes, try to land a couple of the trick, come back out the next day, try to land a couple more from a different angle or whatever. And it took forever because I was just in so much pain all the time. And for me, what happened was my back and my quads got too strong compared to my abs and my glutes. And so I had to relearn how to balance. So, like, as I'm standing there on a skateboard trying to keep my balance, I was using the wrong muscles. I eventually pulled my kneecap out with my quad, basically. And I had to go to physical therapy and learn how to, like, to turn off certain muscles and turn on other ones. And now my knee will start to flare up a little bit every now and then, and I just have to do a bunch of leg stuff. I have to do a bunch of squats and I have to build up the right muscles and stuff again so that I can even skate. So for me, it makes a big difference. For most people, I think just skating more is the best way because it's more about developing skill in skateboarding rather than physical conditioning. But again, it really depends on where you are in your skateboarding, where you're planning on going, what type of stuff you do, the level of impact, and all that type of thing. So it's definitely not going to hurt. I'll tell you that much. The last question from today is from Pedro Drayetta, who asks, do you think if they remake the Tony Hawk games, upgrading the graphics and gameplay but keeping the overall concept of the franchise to the new generation of consoles, could that bring its popularity back? Not counting Pro Skater 5, he says. Well, that's not going to happen for a couple of reasons. Tony Hawk recently tweeted that Activision owns the rights to the Tony Hawk series, but he's not working with them anymore. And so what that means is that there's no way there's going to be Tony Hawk's Underground HD. That just can't happen at this point. I do think there is a couple of ways that we could get a new Tony Hawk style game, and that would be if... Again, I haven't read any of the contracts. I don't know the legal language of anything that's binding anybody here, but I think it's possible for Activision to re-release a Tony Hawk game without Tony Hawk in it. Do American Skater Underground. It's Tony Hawk without Tony Hawk in it. Maybe they replace some of the skaters that were in it with new ones, or even just have all generic skaters. They might have to change a couple of things to make it fit within whatever legal limitations. But I think that's perfectly possible they could do that. But I really hope they don't. Because we saw when they tried to do Tony Hawk HD, which should have been great. They had such gold to work from. They had Tony Hawk 1 and 2. They touched into 3. I think it was only in DLC. But those games were so solid and so good. They could have been able to just update the graphics, make some things a little bit nicer, add some bonus features or something like that. And it would have been a great game. But they just screwed it up. They made it super glitchy, and I just don't think they spent any time on it. The budget wasn't there, and it just sucked, right? And Pro Skater 5 obviously sucked as well. I've yet to play that one, but I do have an Xbox One now, so it's going to happen. But those games just sucked, right? And so seeing if Activision were to try to make an HD remake of one of those games, we don't really want that to happen. They're not going to do it right. It's going to suck. It's going to just put skateboarding further down in the toilet. Right now, the Tony Hawk brand, as far as games are concerned, is in the toilet. It sucks. Like, no one wants to get a new Tony Hawk game. If they announce Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 6 tomorrow, would anyone really be excited about it? I don't think so. So hopefully they don't try to do that. But the other thing that could happen is Hawk himself could work with a different publisher and make a new type of game. And he has hinted that this might happen, that he might be in talks with somebody about something, but we don't know any details. So hopefully it's not like a phone app or something like that has something to do with skateboarding. Hopefully it is a new console skateboarding game. I'm really hoping that's the case. And I bet it can't be Tony Hawk's something. It's probably going to be a skateboarding game and he happens to be in it because of Activision owning the rights and all that stuff. But it could happen. And the way I would like to see that go is to go back to basics to a degree. So we had Super Sim games. We had the Skate series. We have a Session coming out, which is even more technical. You control each foot separately, and it changes by which stance you're going, all that kind of stuff. If you want super technical sim skateboarding, those games are already out. And the new Tony Hawk game isn't going to be able to compare with that. So I won't even try to go that way. The reason why the Tony Hawk games were so fun, back when they were fun, is because it was just fun and arcadey. You could just get into the game. You could hand the controller off to somebody, say, hey, here's how you jump, hit these buttons to do tricks, and they'll be able to do stuff. They don't have to really think about it and know a lot about skateboarding and know that this trick has to flow into this type of trick or that kind of thing. You don't need to know that kind of stuff with the original Tony Hawk games. You just pick up the controller and play. And one of the big problems with some of the games that came a little later in the series, like Proving Grounds, which I just reviewed, is that they try to cram in too much stuff. There's all these different modes. You're skating around, you hit the wrong button, and suddenly, you're in slow motion, and the controls all do different things. Like, it got too weird, too complicated, with too much stuff going on. So we got to go back to the basics. Exactly what point? Maybe Pro Skater 4. So in Pro Skater 4, you could manual, you could revert, you could spine transfer, and that's about it. I think you could maybe drive like golf carts or something like that, but take out all the driving, take out the climbing around on stuff, take out the tagging stuff, take out all the create a trick modes and the slow-mo, nail the trick, all that kind of stuff. Just back to the basics where everything's simple, where every button does one thing and you don't have to be too confused. If you can have a really fun game like that, and just put some budget into it, spend some time, make it look good, make it stable so your character doesn't flop around when he hits the ground and glitch out and teleport across the world. If you can make it stable, make it really good, I think that there is a big market for that still. Because the Tony Hawk series thrived when there were a million games like it. You had the Tony Hawk series, you had different skateboarding games as well. You also had BMX, you had inline, you had scooters, you had snowboarding, you had wakeboarding, surfing. There were all these games coming out at the same time, and the Tony Hawk series still did well. So right now, there's nothing like that coming out. If there was a new arcadey game that was based on skateboarding and had Tony Hawk in it somehow, I think there is a big market for that, and it might bring back skateboard gaming in general. So I really hope he's up to something, and I really hope they do it right. I really hope they treat it with some respect. So that's the way that I would handle the new Tony Hawk series. Let me know your thoughts about that below. If you have questions for next time, go to radratvideo.com and you can submit a question through my form right there on the homepage, and I will try to answer it next time. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.